Okay, in the third part of our conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about blending physical and digital experiences and getting the mix right and how one should complement the other. Um, so I get started with that. Why is it so important to get that mix right, to get that experience right across the physical and digital?
Yeah, I think we still have these horrible way to describe these kind of experiences: Fidgetal, blended spaces, omni-channel.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very important, and I think probably fueled by some of the things we've touched on earlier, like personalization, more immersive possibilities. And we know that this younger audience, Generation Z, they've been brought up on digital, they're digital natives. But there is signs that they also pine for that kind of more physical experience as well. And so that's where physical and digital, where Fidgetal kind of comes together and it starts to get interesting. So I guess we should look at what interesting examples we think are out there where customers are we in the luxury space, that we're treating them like royalty in this kind of blended space. So Caroline, what springs to mind for you?
I think it's been really interesting sort of how this has evolved. I mean, I have been involved in digital my entire career, but obviously that's evolved so much, and I think there's always thinking around, oh, your store is your kind of shop window, your catalogue or whatever, and then people transact online, or people go to your website to do their research and then they transact in store. I think anyone's ever really figured out what I think it's different for every different customer actually, but I think the most important thing is that every touch point you do have as a brand is, to use your word, blended as an experience, and sings from the same song sheet. That your I think your most important people are your frontline people, whether it's your web manager who's ensuring that that the copy and the merchandising is on point, or your customer service person on the end of the phone or on the end of your digital live chat or bot, or your actual sales assistant, but they're speaking the brand tone of voice. They're giving the brand experience through that personal touch point, because then everything else can follow. I think ultimately, if we're summarizing it all in one thing, it's consistency is key, right? Customers like consistency. Customers, we talked earlier about, customers being turned off by one bad experience across thousands of touch points that they potentially may have with a brand. One position or comment on a social post could undo you as a brand. You have to tie everybody, everything in together, every touch point in together, and I think
And have visibility as such, right? That's,
and it's hard as a CMO. It's hard to make sure that your community manager is saying the same thing as your store assistant, as whatever.
Or even if they mean the same thing, I guess, right? Because, this is a new world, it might be a completely new world, especially if the store manager doesn't know, isn't up to speed enough with what's going on the digital side, right?
And the customer expectations have to be managed, and of course, but ultimately, and I've said this right from day dot, sometimes to complete horror looks in the room from sort of sales teams or whatever. When I was an e-com manager, so just responsible for the digital side of the business, saying I don't care where the customers buy, I just want to create an experience that on our website that means that it adds to their experience of us as a brand. They can go off and buy on Amazon, they can go off and buy wherever, because we're creating that kind of evolution from them as an interest through to a purchaser. So, and that's the core thing, to use this channel for that space. I always think of an example of when I was working at Belstaff, the fashion brand. I mean, so many things that we did as we were learning when we took over Belstaff to work for the company that just bought them. But one of the things was, Yeah, absolutely, Caroline. We're definitely ready to launch .com. All the checks are done. Bug list was cleared. All the tech in place. And we're ready for your final run throughs. Final run through done. Where's all the stock? Nothing's in stock. Yeah. We're fine. It's an 18% stock availability. It's fine. No, it's not, because you're out of stock of most of the products that we're sending people to experience. And this is this is, a long time ago now, but still the expectation is that there's going to be stock, because customers don't know that then, it's fine, there's going to be stock in store. They're using the website potentially at this point to discover your new products, to then go and try them on, maybe even, because it is an expensive luxury item. At 18% stock availability, it's not going to help you out in any way.
Let down from.
I think they've changed a lot since then, and we didn't launch with 18% stock. We did wait, but I think joining those dots and making sure, have online exclusives that drive a certain customer. Create an in-store theatre, and I think that's really important to drive a new customer as well as an existing customer to interact with your brand, but ensure that there is that kind of synergy and consistency between each.
Yeah, and also you mentioned that, do something in store that's different to your online promotions or what have you. But that's right, okay, because different media have got different capabilities, okay? But you're looking for that consistent thread all the way through, right, in terms of experience.
Yeah. I mean, if I can maybe take it slightly out of luxury for a second, although I'd say in their sector, they're definitely luxury, but to use an example of a brand that's incredible at in-store sort of theatre and brand experience is Jellycat. The soft plushy toys. They are essentially selling the most expensive soft toys out there on the high street, right? But their constant iteration of and constant new releases and constant, they are bringing out stuff all the time, but they're doing it with a consistent humor across how they display the products, how they sell the products, where they stock the products. And then they have these really big kind of what I would call 5-star brand moments. So I don't know if anyone's seen any of these, but two examples. One, they had a fish and chip pop-up in Selfridges, where you'd go in and you could buy soft plushy versions of fish, chips, salt and vinegar, whatever. But trained actors were serving you. They were using tongs to take the toys out. They were wrapping them like they'd wrap a traditional. They were asking you for salt and vinegar on your chips. Everything was beautiful, and it was it tapped into a nostalgic piece. It tapped into an adult buying a toy for themselves and their child. It tapped into that pester power of experience in a child's wonderment, right? Because it's a toy ultimately. But what they create is exciting. It's talked about. It's of course Instagrammable. And they did in Le Bon Marché in Paris. They did a patisserie where they had all the beautiful cakes and stuff as plushies. And again, you got in a Jellycat box, and it was all very, very beautifully done. And I think they are just very clever at tapping into that kind of in-store theatre that then goes away to kind of almost put reason behind, because no one needs a croissant with a smiley face on that's cuddly. Like, no one needs that, right? in any world. I mean, you could argue no one needs a luxury handbag, but I would probably put a better counter argument to that versus a croissant. But they're creating desire, and they're creating a connection that extends beyond that initial experience in store. It's you're then going to be a Jellycat customer for life, and you're going to tell loads of people about it.
That's really cool.
And of course, going back to what we were saying about that kind of blend. So, even though, I guess is a good example of, even though brands are, increasingly thinking digital first, or at least, in some cases they are, actually that's where, like you say, the medium for that kind of theatre clearly isn't online, but they've still got that link across.
But they do. I mean, essentially, they're using it as their content strategy as well. So they're creating these A-star moments, and then they're filming a load of content, and then it's out there. I don't know I don't know anyone in my circle of friends that didn't see the Instagram of the Le Bon Marché patisserie and create I'd love to go there. I sent it to my sister because she was in Paris. She went there immediately and then phoned me up and said, I've just spent 200 euros and I don't know how. So it I think it's a multi-touch point strategy because they're clever with it, and they use influencers in that space too. They use, so yes, it is that
So an
in-store
example
theatre.
of where they've got that mix, that blend right.
Yes, I think so.
I think maybe another example of the blend, bringing that kind of physical and digital together is probably Disney's Magic Band.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, it's a $1 billion project, but the execution of that and the way that it elevates you and your family's experience while in and outside the park is excellent. Just kind of real nice design, UX, the whole piece just really nice to really elevate an experience.
But I guess they're the originators of bringing a movie to life in the real world, extending that
theatre,
connection.
Theatre, and that magic, so that band is making all members of the family, including the children, feel like they have the power, and really elevating their experience to superhero level. I mean, I think there's probably also some bad examples out there.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about so that's the good. What about the
because
bad?
I did used to use an example from the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Vegas. So they had this kind of bionic concierge that I think kind of moved around the foyer and greeted and tried to help customers. But it's probably a really good example of trying to execute an idea where the technology just isn't there. So whereas if you maybe flip it to maybe a much more recent and relevant example is some of the things that we all saw at the Robo-Taxi launch at Warner Brothers Studios a couple of weeks ago. So where the humanoid Optimus, I think it is, Tesla robots, basically walked out with the new Robo van to unveil that kind of new vehicle. But then those robots went off into the crowd, were interacting with the crowd, handing out gifts, and performing dance routines. So.
Another one of those 5-star moments you were talking about, right?
But it's just, I think that's where the technology, you start to realize the possibility of what you could do in a physical space, not just with digital, but with signage, screens, robotics, AI, and I think I think we're at a point where all of those things are potentially starting to come together that unlock lots of interesting opportunity for luxury brands to get into really interesting events, really interesting launches, experiential type products and services. So I think, out of the bad example becomes a much more relevant, kind of up-to-date example with the possibilities of much more in the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, the Tesla humanoid robots that Elon Musk launched, that I think it was 2020. It's 4 years old as a business. When they first started demoing those robots, it was a bit of a laughing stock, and 4 years in, the rate of change and possibilities is ridiculous.
It's a steep upward curve, isn't it, in terms of across all areas, or most areas of tech right now. So who knows where we'll be in the next year, the next 2 years, or the next 3 years. So all that sounds great, and that points to a future where brands can, really seamlessly interconnect again, if they do it well, but they can seamlessly interconnect the physical and the digital, and with it brings a whole host of opportunities for better customer engagement and so on and so forth. Um, that sounds great, but it does come with its challenges, right? So you've got to get everything right, and especially from a it introduces more complexity, I guess, on the technology side as well. But not just the technology, and having to cover so many more touch points and make sure that everything's talking to each other, and make sure everything is sequenced right, and make sure that planning is right, especially when you're going to do, the big theatre events, and then you need to follow it up with this, and then so many different touch points. But also the people side of it as well. So the example you used right at the top of this part was a good one of where, if your in-store staff don't know what's going on,
Yeah.
on the other side of things, or on the technical side of things, or on the digital side of things, there needs to be a level of understanding, level of training effectively, that staff need to go through to make sure, because, the people are still a hugely important element of this. If you're going to have physical stores, the likelihood is you're going to have some form of people within those stores. That kind of person interaction is still absolutely paramount. So it needs to be all aligned, I guess, and that comes with its own challenges, especially when you're talking about people. You've got the normal resistance to change. You've got, the kind of fearful new way of doing things. But I think that is pretty important consideration for brands. And as if brands are sat there keeping an eye, as they should be doing, on the pace of evolution of this, as you get more standout examples that other brands can learn from, as you get access to better, quicker, more intelligent technology, I think it's quite important for brands to make sure that they've got that, firmly one eye on the other stuff that goes around it. So that would be my kind of take. What would be your advice on going Fidgetal
Thanks,
for
Fidgetal.
brands?
Yeah, I mean, just jumping in on your kind of on the people side of it. I think for years shopping in Waterstones for a book, it feels like I'm kind of sticking a finger up at Amazon to kind of find my book recommendations, but they've always done the nice, in-store staff recommends kind of little things on the books, and those little elements like that, pulling those into a space where you can obviously create that in a bigger world, but that does create that connection without that potentially them kind of standing there selling it to you. There's a really nice kind of element of that can be created by using your in-store staff, your customer service staff. I think the world of influencer is moving hopefully away from that kind of mega influencer macro kind of chaos of millions of fans into a space where actually, if brands do it right, their employees do become their influencers, their customers do become their influencers, and creating that community, as we've talked about, creating those experiences that people want to talk about at that at micro level.
That means something to them individually.
Exactly. Then I think your employees are a valuable tool, and I'd say that's probably one of my top tips is to look at that, how employees and how the voices of your brand all join up, and kind of leverage back up to that consistency messaging that we were talking about.
What about you, Dean? What are your top advice?
I think that we've got this kind of so much information, insight, data, and possibilities with technology. I think we need to work hard to connect the dots, but use all of that data and insight to actually create simple, engaging experiences in these blended spaces. I think there's a danger of maybe making things too complex.
It totally is. It's what I was saying before. We live complicated lives. The last thing we want is
you want to step away from that. You want to break from that. You want to step into an interesting space and have a simple but really engaging, personalized experiences. And almost maybe on the flip of that there is that possibility for much more interesting wow moments that can be captured socially, that can use some of the AR, VR, digital signage, intelligent signage, potentially fueled by AI and the more we know about customers to again elevate those in-store experiences with a little bit more wow.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. With a caveat that as long as it makes sense to the customer.
Yeah.
Like as long as it adds to their, as long as they don't have to sign into a screen or do it, I think that's always a kind of hurdle. And I think if you're doing something, I guess it goes back to consistency and to seamlessness. Can't speak. To creating a seamless experience. If they're automatically logged in because you know who they are as they come through the door, then it makes it a simplified experience.
I guess we touched on it earlier with some of those previous examples. Yeah, put effort into designing it in the right way to take the load off the customer.
Yeah, don't just jump into bed with the technology because it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be one of my, major points is design the process, soup to nuts, understand what it is you're trying to achieve, customer-centric point of view before you start to go in. Test POC stuff, understand what's available out there, understand how far you can push, that kind of interconnected journey, no matter what tools you're using, understand what's available to you, and how far you can push it. But actually, you need to then take a step back and you need to make sure that you've got your process design soup to nuts, which includes everything. So for instance, your example there about, your caveat there about making sure that it's a seamless experience and could, the technology effectively recognize you as you walked into the store. So automatically logs you in when you walk up to something. Well, yeah, it can, but then obviously you've got, to make sure that if that's the experience you want your customer to have, then obviously you've got to tick all these other boxes as well, just to make sure that, security is there and privacy is there. And the customer knows what you're doing with their data as well. I think that kind of, again, going back to values, and the values that customers are starting to appreciate more, it's making sure the customer knows what data you've got, knows what you're doing with it. And I think we're starting to see a few more brands being more overt about that, which I think is a good thing. So I think some good advice there, some good takeaways for organizations on how they should to approach and what they should keep an eye on. But what do we see as the future of Fidgetal?
I think there's so many different possibilities, and the way things are heading and the rate of change. I think it could potentially get really exciting over the next 3 to 5 years. We'll start to see kind of the journey kind of spawn out into different, completely different adjacent journeys, adjacent channels, parallel journeys. I think we'll start to see much more deeply immersive experiences in the store. I think some of the possibilities with AI and intelligence we will see injected into those store experiences. If potentially meta-humans might be intelligent enough to completely know your brand and your brand voice inside and out for brands to feel comfortable that they could have almost a digital meta-human type experience in the store that would provide a certain experience or interaction with customers in a completely different way. Some of the immersive devices, VR headsets, will potentially allow customers to come into a completely branded space and have a totally immersive experience in a completely branded world.
I think, as you said before, right, the race for the face is on. I think I'd add to that pot the return of the smart glasses as well.
I mean, it's starting to look like they will potentially be a serious proposition. With a little bit less intrusive. And I guess, maybe thinking that little bit further into the future, beyond digital, beyond the store, we start to think about maybe smart cities and some of the big investment we're seeing in the Middle East, where cities are being designed and built from the ground up with technology, innovation, data at the core of the design of that city, connecting the city to basically unlock completely different digital immersive personalized experiences in and around a city, and brands potentially have a big part to play in that as well.
Yeah, and tying it back into the brand space, I suppose, it's for years there's many headlines around the death of the high street, or where the high street's going. And I think, there is still a huge role, especially in luxury, actually, for that kind of in-store physical interaction space experience. But the brands that survive, the brands that really are going to be the brands that really invest in doing it well and using some of this technology, not for the technology's sake, but for the customer's sake, in terms of enhancing the experience and creating that connectivity
And
and
unlocking completely new experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And the race will be to do that in the right way for your brand and for your customer.
Yeah.
Not just to do it because the technology exists.
Absolutely.
I think.
Yeah.
Common theme, I think, that, isn't it? That's run through the entire discussion. Okay, so what are our key takeaways from the world of hyper-personalization and the potential there for brands?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is to do it in terms of what the customer needs. I think I keep saying this: the voice of the customer. Why do they want personalization? How does it add to their experience of you as a brand, and how their buying experience? Essentially do it in an authentic way, not just because you can. I guess also the value of data, of knowing what a customer wants, of what they share with you, and understanding of all the different data points, what is relevant, and what you can play into to enhance the experience and enhance your conversion rate. So I suppose ultimately both on and offline, and that kind of balance of what is required from a customer from a personalization point of view. So I think we don't just need an email with our name on it. It's we need a lot more. The expectation is a lot more, and as the Gen Z consumer comes in, their expectation is going to be even further in terms of what a brand can give them in each interaction.
Mm-hmm. I think for me the tools, technology, platforms are there to do personalization and do it well. But to really do it well, I think personalization needs to be part of your wider first part of the data strategy. And then once you've got that, really start to map that out across your end-to-end journey. And I think we touched on it earlier, is with the extra data and capability that you have, be responsible with that and potentially make the harder decisions to communicate less, but on a much more one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree. For me, it comes down to two fairly simple things. First is be prepared. Second is be nimble. So be prepared, taking into account some of the data points that you've just made. Be prepared. Is your organization ready to take on AI tools? Have you got the appropriate guardrails in place? Have you got the appropriate team in place? Do you know actually, where you're trying to get to with it? And then be nimble, because the pace of change of technology is such that, again, you don't want to be in a position where you've invested a load of money into something and then find out that you can't adjust things, tweak things, swap out different components. So be prepared and be nimble.
Absolutely. And I think leading into, we were also talking about loyalty. Loyalty is so important in hyper-personalization, but it needs to align with your brand values and your consumer values. So that example of being able to spend loyalty points on sustainable initiatives, or experience, not doing points for prizes, because everybody's got that. Loyalty fatigue definitely exists. And moving away from that and creating lasting value and lasting connection.
Could it unlock a unique experience that could be not purchased anywhere else?
Because for me, from a brand point of view, hyper-personalization is that unique experience and connectivity, and then leading into your most loyal customers being your best advocates and your best influencers for your brand. Okay,
so as far as Fidgetal goes, what are your key takeaways from that discussion?
Other than we love that word, not
yeah, that's it. It's lodged now.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just consistency is my biggest take. Creating a consistency of experience across all touch points is going to be the most key thing that you can offer, and that that individuals are the sum of your parts as a brand. So everybody needs to be saying the same thing in the same tone of voice for your brand to really keep that consistency and that value. And yeah, some of your best assets as a brand are the people that speak to customers on a day-to-day basis.
I think this is super exciting area for me. I think if I'm wearing my immersive and experience hat, the possibilities that are available to brands over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years are going to be really interesting to really explore unique wow moments, both in a store, in a physical location, at an event, or a virtual launch. I think the possibilities to engage customers in some really deep, interesting kind of experiential experiences, I think is going to be really interesting. And brands, luxury brands, have the potential to kind of move beyond that kind of traditional retail and product experience into something much more experiential.
Yeah, I think you're right. And for me, it's about, the brands who get it right and get it right early, they're going to, absolutely thrive in this, because I guess what I would say in terms of key takeaway is, sounds fairly obvious, but look at it holistically, right? And that's the whole conversation around this is looking at more than just one area. But look at it holistically, design now, think about that kind of soup to nuts process, set of processes, customer experience, customer touch points, and so on and so on and so on. And then what that will allow you to do is be nimble. Because I think, as you said, Dean, where we'll be in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we just, okay, you've had a good stab at trying to predict where we're going to be. But really, as we said, the pace of change is such that actually, the brands that have already got a really good understanding of that, they're already thinking in that holistic way, a whole customer experience, are the ones that are going to be in pole position to take advantage of the new technology and the new ways of doing things. So but they've got to be nimble with it, and they've got to make data-informed choices. But yeah, look at the big picture of this.
And I think that because of that rapid pace of change, the strategic roadmap just need to kind of bring in the aspirations a little bit shorter, so that you can react to some of those changes as they come to market.
Yeah. So we explored a lot today. We covered a lot of ground, found some common themes that have strung together through all the different parts. I think it's fair to say that for a lot of luxury brands, they're at a crossroads. You either embrace the disruption, or you will struggle, quite frankly. So in finishing, I'd like to thank you both for your time, and more importantly, your expertise and your insights. So Caroline, thank you very much. Dean, thank you very much. Just remind us where people can get in touch with you, should they want to.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Caroline Finn. Yeah, feel free to drop me a line, for sure.
Yeah, same. Dean Evans, LinkedIn, and I'm running Brevet Consulting at the moment.
Great. All right, thank you again to both. And if you'd like to find out more about some of the things we discussed, if you've got any questions, or if you want to get in touch with True Worth to get more access to people and experts like these via our True Worth Collective, then please do so. Links will be in the show note to the bottom.